So before we start, well, actually, why don't we start with first having Janine, if you're willing, to share sort of your journey and what how that shifted over time, and just your wisdom that you've brought to our conversations.
I know I'm a little embarrassed when you call it wisdom. I don't know if I can consider it that. Hi to everyone. My name's Janine Schneider, and my son is Tommy Schneider. And I am Tommy's only caregiver right now. As Dawn mentioned, about 5 years ago, I think it possibly was one of the first Future Is Now get-togethers I attended with my husband, Tom, and we went through it. It was wonderful. And, you know, they gave us a lot of information, and it was kind of an emotional time, hearing from different parents, and just it was one of the first times that I was kind of really realizing what I had to possibly do. So we left the group and we went, you know, had all our materials. And of course, my binder kind of got put on the shelf. And I really didn't do the work that was necessary. So then what happened was, I'm sure, you know, like I said earlier today, is we kind of live with this idea that it's never going to happen to us. But my husband, Tom, passed away about 3 years ago. So I basically, you know, have been left with Tommy as his only caregiver. Dawn reached out to me about, you know, the Future Is Now a couple months ago, and I felt like it was just a blessing, because I really, it had been in the back of my mind, but I just wasn't following through on taking care of things. And so I, you know, went through the Future Is Now, I guess, meeting that they had through Zoom. And I just felt like I was approaching it much differently. I just felt like it was something that I really had to take care of now, and not, again, just put it aside and hope that it, you know, wouldn't happen to me, because I know now, you know, it could, and it was only going to leave my family in a situation where it would be chaos for them, and especially for Tommy, if I didn't have things set up. So I've worked on I've worked more on the concrete things that need to be done, as far as getting information gathered, as far as accounts and passwords and medical information, and names of, you know, he attends Frank's Adult Center, so names, his contact names there in the SSA. So I consider that the easy part. That's just, you know, kind of paperwork. You can get that together. But talking with Dawn, I think the most important part is how do I approach my vision of what it will be, how it will be set up for Tommy when, you know, something possibly happens to me, if my passing would be before his. So that's where I'm at. And you mentioned it's a journey, and like this, it's been a journey. This isn't just a meeting that you attend and you just, you know, get everything together and it's done. So my journey's been a long one. Like I said, I'm approaching this time much more seriously and urgently than I did in the past. Dawn, like I said, I need to really sit down with my family. We need to make decisions. But again, my family I have wonderful sons and loving sons, and we're a very tight family, but then we're not the perfect family. And so everybody has different personalities, and not everyone loves each other. They love them. That's just, they sometimes don't see eye to eye. So, you know, I talked to Dawn because I think I need someone to help me sit with my family and, approach decisions on the best way to plan for Tommy's future. So I guess the last thing I want to say is please take these decisions seriously. Try not to set them aside. Leave the binder out on your counter, out on your end table so that you don't forget about it, because you don't want to, it can happen to you. So, and I want to thank everyone here that's, helped me in the past. So I'm hoping to get with you again. So.
Well, Janine, thanks again for sharing your story and for highlighting the urgency of these conversations and also the steps that you've already taken. And again, the importance of asking and inviting people in to take maybe not the whole, nobody's ever going to replace you, but taking it slices and roles and really thinking carefully through how to have that conversation. So I really, really appreciate that. And I appreciate your time today joining us to talk about it. I think.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
I think we're going to have, there's Tommy. I think we're going to break into, for about 5 minutes, break into breakout rooms just so we can get oriented. And the real question we want you to talk about is why it's important that you're here today. So what kind of drew you to being here today to think about future planning for your loved one?
So I'm going to open virtual breakout rooms. And this is not like that game where you go and try to escape. Okay. You should probably call it something else, but okay. Well, welcome back. And some of you all, there were just a couple of you in the room. It was a much smaller group than this earlier this afternoon. So, and nobody returned early. So maybe I closed the rooms too soon. So I'm going to assume there must have been some really, hopefully, substantive heart-to-heart conversations going on. So not going to ask anybody to speak out, but if there's something you want to have, contribute in the chat box about something you felt was helpful in that conversation, please go ahead and do so. While
we're Dave and Cindy, and we had Sean in our little private group, and we were just saying how moved I was already with Janine's story, and guess where my binder was? On the shelf. It went off the table. So I'm going to throw it back on the table, so I have to. So anyway.
well, that's
so
cool.
In my breakout group, there was a social worker and then there was a parent. And I'm really excited about these types of webinars and group get-togethers. I'm a transition specialist for Wood County. And so we work with, students getting ready for transition to adult services and then just making sure that they have what they need or as much as we can provide. So it's great to hear families' outlook and learn more about what we could be doing to best help families and what they need connected with.
Well, and Kate, I'm assuming you're off the clock. So thanks for being here tonight.
No problem. we have 2 volleyball games tonight. So
It seems like you're at school.
Nope, I stepped outside. So I'm here. If my camera goes off, it's just, I'm trying to go back and forth, but I'm listening.
Well, thanks for being here. Anybody else?
We did talk in our group about transition, that when you get to those sort of traditional transitions, like from school to the adult world, that really does trigger thinking differently. So we were talking about that. And also, I'm just, again, pleased that we have a provider here who's really listening for a 90-year-old caretaker who has not done planning yet. And so I can't emphasize enough how wonderful it is to have providers that are willing to listen and bring information. And Sean, Margot, he's right next to you in the room, I can see, but Sean will connect with you.
I'd like to connect you with Dick Covert, who's in his 90s. And he could, here in Lexington, I'm not sure he's in a good space right now, but anyway, he and I have done a lot of joint presentations back when he was in his 70s, actually. But just know that it's really great that you're doing it. It's great that you're doing it. Okay, so My name's Carolyn Wheeler, and I'm just really privileged, really, just to be with you all tonight. This is a real honor and opportunity for me. I had the pleasure of meeting Don through a mutual friend and colleague, Joe Krippenstapel. And this is an area of my work, but also an area in my personal life where I've had a lot of involvement on behalf of individual people that I care about, as well as just a real love and passion for trying to help families figure this out and plan for the future, because I've just seen the tremendous benefit of it in people's lives. So I'm going to start though with sharing a concept that I'm hoping might be helpful to you. So partly why that binder may still be on the shelf may have something to do with just your own temperament and how you're wired. Now, it may also have a lot to do with just what else going on in your life, but I want you to take a look at this and see which color kind of jumps out at you. And it's not that one's good and one's bad. However, what I'm going to suggest to you is that your temperament, you know, depending on where you are, you may need to find other people with other kind of temperaments to help you move this along. We'll suggest that as a way to think about this. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to share, since I've found it, a really quick video that illustrates these temperament types. Not to worry. This is actually from a book written by Kathleen Edelman, who is a communication coach, has her doctorate in this, and she has a book called I Said This, You Heard That.
All right.
So I thought that might be kind of fun since it's nighttime. But what this has to do to me with planning is that, again, depending on, can you still see my screen, Don, Sean? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Cindy. Is that if you're in the green, again, and feel no sense of urgency, well, maybe something happens, but maybe there needs to be someone in your life that will help you. Again, might need a little red person. If you're super blue, it's hard to ever make decisions because nothing ever feels safe and secure enough. Does any of that make sense to you? So I think in terms of family dynamics, even, it's just kind of helpful to understand this. This was just helpful to me in my own family. I will just tell you, I'm red. I am driven. I'm task oriented. I'm a planner. And that overwhelms people and it makes them unhappy with me sometimes. And so I really have tried with my family, who are more yellow-green, I try to tone that back. And yet at the same time, when it came to family members and even my friend Linda, for whom I do this, there were just times things needed to get done. So in any event, I digress. But just to say that I think understanding this may help us to, Dennis, we identify who we are, what we bring to this effort, and then to maybe figure out who else do we need to complement us or to perhaps encourage and support us along this journey. So with that, I'm going to move toward my slides. So again, to me, this is about creating a safe and secure future for your family member. And at least from my experience and being involved in this work for quite some time, that fear is very understandable. It's very prevalent, not knowing where to go. And that's why this particular initiative to me is so helpful, but they aren't your allies. And what I can just, I guess, want to encourage you is that taking steps can often help to overcome the fear, and finding out information can be really, really helpful and empowering in this work and in this endeavor. So this book shaped my thinking and has been really helpful to me. And I was fortunate enough to actually come into my life in about 1997. And I was fortunate actually to hear Alec Mansky talk. And Alec Mansky is one of the authors. Alec Mansky actually came to Ohio sometime in the 21st century. But this book is available, and I got it copied. I'm going to paste the link into the chat box, but it's free. And I think this is just to me a good complement to The Future Is Now, or it may be what can motivate you to, I don't know, open the binder, perhaps, because that's, I mean, I do the binder too. I've done lots and lots of trainings where I've given families binders, and that's just often what happens to the binder, because it may, I don't know, maybe it's too overwhelming. But in any event, this book, you can click this link here to learn more about it and download it for free. And these worksheets may even be a place to start. And so I'm just going to click on one of them. Again, they're all free, they're downloadable, but it talks about, I mean, what you're going to talk about in The Future Is Now is going to be about people. I'm going to talk about this. So again, some of these may just help you, again, whatever it would be that could help you to move forward in your thinking and in your journey. So, because prior to seeing this book, I had heard a lot of attorneys talk about, supplemental needs trust, special needs trust, but I knew from my own personal experience, there's a lot more to it. There's just a lot more to it. And this book just really helped me to identify what I'm now going to talk about are five things that you have to figure out. The Good Life Networks that you may be familiar with was inspired by a talk that Alec Mansky did there in Ohio. And if you're not part of the Good Life Networks, I'm going to encourage you to become a part of it, because again, it's just really important to me that you do this work in community. And so I'm on the listserv. At least nothing else, it's helpful to be on the listserv. I think there are going to maybe be some in-person gatherings at some point, depending on how COVID is. But just again, I'm going to put that here in the chat box and just encourage you, if you're not familiar with it, that it could be really helpful to you, again, because so you don't feel alone, and that you just know there are other people that are really all about trying to help create a good life for their family member. So I am in my 41st year of being a voluntary guardian or power of attorney, and fundamentally friend, or really like an adopted sibling, for 3 different adults sequentially who have intellectual and developmental disabilities, who had no family and also had no assets. And I met them pretty much through my work, but just to know that when we started on this work, we didn't have a lot to work with. They didn't have someone like you in their life. And what I have found from that, as well as on behalf of some individual family members, is these are the 5 things that need to be figured out. And first is vision. It's, what do you want? What do they want? And then given whatever that vision is, and that's a vision for today, but also for the future when you're no longer here or able to provide the support that you currently do. And then how much is that going to cost, and where's it going to come from? And I'm going to talk about 3 different sources of that money. And then who are going to be the people who are going to take on certain roles. And it's just my experience, and also just my belief, if you have a pretty good sense of the vision, and you have a pretty good sense of the money, the ask, what you're going to ask people to do, that slice that Don talked about, I think is less hard. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's less hard, because it's not too big of an ask. You're not asking somebody to figure everything out and pay for it. You've done that hard, well, maybe that exciting work of figuring that out. And then it's just really critical then to make sure you have the legal mechanisms and safeguards in place to safeguard and protect your plan. So this is a picture of the second gentleman that I was involved with for about 17 years. His name is Clinton. I met him when I worked for a similar kind of agency to where Don works there in Ohio. He lived in this horrible place with his dad, actually. His parents had intellectual disabilities. They were tenant farmers in Oldham County. And his sister is to his left. He's holding a hoe, an HOE, because By this time, I'd helped him buy his own home. That's its own story, which I'm not going to tell tonight. And we had met for dinner in Shelbyville because I now, at this point, lived in Lexington. He lives in Louisville. In any event, but what his parents imparted to both Clinton and Linda, I think you can see the family resemblance, is a strong work ethic. And Clinton in particular had a very strong work ethic. In fact, one of his favorite expressions, man of few words, but he would say in a sing-songy voice was no work, no money. And I just would maintain that's a smart man. He just understood the relationship between working and having money. Now he and with Linda, they don't know the difference between a $1 and a $5 bill, but they know money buys things. And so they just both were brought up. Again, they worked on farm. We would drive past this is a long time ago. You can date me, a tobacco field. And he would talk about bacca, daddy. Well, he kind of put that together. He put up tobacco with his dad. So in any event, that served him and it served Linda well. So Clinton died unexpectedly in 2003. And so I decided to take on that role for his sister, who I'd gotten reconnected with through its own story. But in any event, Linda had what we call here in Kentucky a limited guardianship order. We have limited guardianship and full guardianship. And I'm going to show you a really great document to help you understand what that looks like in Ohio. At that point, I certainly knew about powers of attorney, but I didn't know about how that might apply to a person with an intellectual disability. But she had a limited guardianship order, and we have a state guardianship department, which I'm going to bet you have in Ohio too. Am I right, Don? I mean, like nobody has a guardian. And unfortunately, we just have an awful lot of folks. We have an awful lot of folks who have state guardians. In any event, took on that role, but that order expired, and I knew a lot at that point about supported decision-making, and I worked with an estate and about powers of attorney. So I worked with an estate planning attorney here in Lexington, and Linda executed a power of attorney and advance directive. So I could do everything I did for her as her guardian, but frankly, and that is a hassle, without the court reporting requirements. It was just a much more flexible arrangement. And I can tell you that Linda knows I'm not her guardian, and I have seen her become more self-empowered, more independent, and willing to make, and just more self-confident over time. In any event, so the current vision for her life. So Linda, again, there was life between 2003, 2009 that I won't go through, but she had the opportunity to move into a brand new apartment building that a nonprofit in Louisville built with HUD, Housing and Urban Development funding that they had obtained, that has 8 apartments, all for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, that is HUD subsidized. Now, not necessarily a whole lot of those, but she was very fortunate, and she has been living there since 2009. And these are the various things that I do for her to keep that in place. And she also pays for all those expenses herself. I mean, the expenses related to her apartment. And just to know that Medicaid doesn't pay for that. Medicaid doesn't pay for food and housing and clothes and cable and internet. And I mean, it pays for people, to, at least here in Kentucky, pays for people to provide support. So Linda retired. Her full retirement age, she was born in 1952, was at age 66. And she was done working. In fact, she decided to retire 2 months early, and didn't tell me or the agent or the place where she was working. That's his own story too. We did have to have some conversations about, well, Linda, you got to give notice. Okay, we have to do, but she was done. So in any event, we got that figured out, but she worked, and she worked part-time most of her adult life, 20 to 25 hours a week, some in what we would call, quote, settings with only people with disabilities, but also in what we now know as competitive integrated employment. And prior to her retirement, she received what's called a Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI, payment on her own work record, because she paid payroll taxes and her employer paid payroll taxes. And she was able to work, maintained her cash benefit, maintained her insurance. So again, just if that's something you thought, I didn't think that was possible, it is. And that's something I love to do presentations about, or I know you probably have people in Ohio who can do that. And then she now, at age 66, that transitioned to a Social Security retirement benefit on her own work record. Now, many of your adult children may already be, or they might receive in the future, a benefit off of your work record, depending on how much they work. Linda's parents, I think they got cash under the table. They had no work record for her to receive a benefit from. So this is her work record, and I would just say it's substantial. Linda had a very significant health crisis in April of 2020. So I say this because it did, having a vision help her get back to what she wanted, but also some things that really, there's a different focus now in her life. So you can read what I have on the screen, but essentially she fell and broke her pelvis. And I lived, again, she lives in Louisville, I live in Lexington. I drove over, a lot of problem solving, staff help, trying to figure out what to do. Eventually, about 2 days later, when I called 911, and this is, early COVID. So there's lots of uncertainty, but she was transported to, again, she's part of just a tremendous healthcare system in Louisville, the Norton's Alliance, where I presented my power of attorney document. And I just point this out to you that your adult children, once they're 18, there needs to be something in place where you can demonstrate you or someone has legal authority in their life to act on their behalf. I presented it at the emergency room, and it was then, I talked to everybody just because now if I just had showed up in the emergency room and said, I'm her friend, I mean, maybe people would have talked to me because Linda's a woman of few words. She clearly can't make these decisions for herself. I don't know what would have happened. All I know is that because I had that legal document, it's about a 5-page document, also her advance directives, just everything was smooth sailing in terms of being able to get things in place for her. She went to a nursing home for rehab. 2 days before she's supposed to be discharged, she tested positive for COVID. And then she ended up spending another 5 weeks in another nursing home. It took 5 weeks for her to have 2 negative tests in a row. I'm not sure if that would be the case today, but it was then. But again, then at that point, I just scanned my power of attorney to everyone. And so everyone talked to me again to make plans and to figure out where she's going to live. I picked her up from that nursing home on June 27th of 2020, and she couldn't go back to her apartment right away. We didn't have enough staff. She was very unconditioned. She'd had some mental decline not related to her intellectual disability. And so she stayed at my house for 3 weeks. And this is her that first afternoon, and she loves to do puzzles. So we're getting the puzzles out and getting things going. So Linda, though, had a vision to go back to her apartment and to see her bunny rabbit Midnight. So she has a rabbit named Midnight, black rabbit, that she takes very good care of. And it was a big incentive for her because really, I kind of ran a rehab boot camp. I mean, we were not sitting around, we were moving. And let's just say that I was able to make that happen. Her vision now, which has been impacted by COVID, so she's not going and doing as much as she may be doing once there's not such significant impact. And by the way, Linda herself, again, in any event, Linda really wants to get out. I'll just say that once everyone was vaccinated, because she wanted to be vaccinated, staff were all vaccinated. I had a Linda Liberation meeting back earlier in the spring when COVID was getting less COVID-y, and talked about how let's figure out more things for Linda to do. Because Linda has money. And you hear that a lot from folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities as adults. If they're trying to live on $7.94 a month, doesn't leave much room, not much margin. And a lot of the focus really is on her health risks, but Linda has lost 50 pounds in the last 2 years. She's pretty proud of that. And now we're buying new clothes. We've been buying new clothes, we're gonna buy more new clothes, but she still has these other underlying health conditions that we need to pay attention to. So a lot of time is spent just really focusing on being active and then trying to help Linda stay connected. Linda does not have a vast social network, but she has what she does have to try to keep her connected to that. She is fortunate to, I guess I'll get there. So it's, the money, so that's the vision. Here's the money piece. So Linda's money pays for, she has an disabled account, but it pays for her rent, her utilities, her cable, her internet and phone. It also pays for Midnight, which he's over $100 a month. Every time, he just eats a lot. He eats a lot of bedding. I can't quite figure it out, but in any event, I'm glad she has the money for Midnight. And then Linda is fortunate to have which is our best, it's our platinum home and community-based waiver here in Kentucky, which I actually apply, and actually I did this, and I'll be on it. This isn't anything against case managers, but she's had 7 case managers in 10 years. I know her story. And I probably spent 30 hours on this, and that's not an exaggeration, because the only way that people get this platinum waiver in Kentucky is on an emergency basis. And she fit the criteria because we have very, very, very large waiting lists. So it was really She had another smaller waiver, but it wouldn't have been enough for her to go back to her apartment. She'd been on that waiting list a long time. So I don't know what it is in Ohio, but most of the time, home and community-based waivers are going to be a part of helping to pay for long-term supports for folks if you're not here. Not everyone that I know needs it, but a lot of folks. Again, I can just say for Linda and I lived together for 3 weeks and that was enough. I mean, I'm not saying she can't come here, but remember, I'm red. She's yellow. She needs a yellow person in her life. I mean, I'm just being honest, I'm not, so it's just really, it works well if she has yellow people in her life and she has this red person in her life who keeps things going and keeps things together. So these are the unpaid people in her life. There are really two of us. Bonnie and I have been in her life for a really long time. Our friend Cindy, who now moved to North Carolina, but she was a big help during this crisis last year. And then paid people through this waiver. And again, she does have a case manager. And then Mary, who was a staff person, actually recruited Karen and her daughter Christine to be additional staff when she moved back to her apartment last year. And I have Karen in green. I mean, she is devoted to Linda. I should put her in yellow. I mean, she's also, in terms of temperament, and they just had this awesome relationship. So Linda, I'd say, is living the dream. I mean, she's just living the dream in any event. And then the supervisor, all of these folks, has just also known Linda for many years. So in terms of legal documents, I do have a power of attorney. I'm her healthcare surrogate for end of life decisions. Should it ever come to that. I'm also her representative payee with Social Security. And I put all these up here because your family member needs those things unless you've chosen, and this isn't a bad thing to do, but unless you either are a power of attorney with advanced directives or you have guardianship. You don't have both. But the representative payee role is separate. So being a guardian, being a power of attorney doesn't make you the representative payee. And most folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities, at least that I've known of, are getting some kind of a cash payment from Social Security. Getting either supplemental security income, SSI, Social Security disability insurance, or Linda now gets a retirement account. And Social Security requires that we have a joint bank account. And so I manage that through PNC Bank because the PNC is here in Lexington, it's in Louisville. And they have this wonderful feature called a Smart Access Card. So you worry about, well, how do Linda get? She paid for things. Well, this is a loadable card. It's not it works like a debit card, but you can't put it in the ATM machine and take all of her money. So they have a mobile app, and so I check her account every day, see where she's been, see where she's having fun, see what she's doing, see if I need to add more money, and that way. And so when she goes to the store, she knows to whip that. She just whips it out. She goes out to eat. I mean, she knows that that's what she uses to pay for things. So it keeps her quite independent. It keeps her safe. Nobody can just, in all the years she's had this, and it's many, many, many years. I think I've had one question one time for an expense at a restaurant that I thought, that seems a little high. And it turns out it had been for 2 people and they got that all figured out, but it wasn't really that big of a deal. She could have afforded to treat the person, but I was just kind of curious. But otherwise, it just works really well. She's not taking advantage of it on it. And I can see where she's been. And so the whole vision, really what I would recommend to you, if you're not familiar, are these life course tools. And you all are fortunate, again, in Ohio to have a lot of effort being expended in this area through the Family Resource Network of Ohio there, which is out of the University of Cincinnati's Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities, and put that there. So Celia, I can't say her last name all of a sudden, Don.
Celia Schlomer.
Schlomer,
yes.
Okay,
I'm not quick on my unmute button. It takes me a sec.
This is what happens when it's now 6:15 or almost at night. In any event, Celia is a parent, and there's just lots of opportunities to assist families to use these tools. So again, if you go to the website, you can click here to learn more. I'm sure Celia does presentations, but there's lots of opportunities. And actually a lot of the SSAs there in Ohio are being trained to use these tools with families. So just encourage you to go there and to go here or to click here for more information or training. There is they have their own website, but I think for you there in the Cincinnati area, this would be a really great connection for you. So again, these tools can really help you chart. It's the very first tool is about a vision for a good life, what you want, what you don't want, what trajectory are we on, and then across 6 different domains, which again, you can start with the one that maybe feels like the most important to you right now, or just the one you can most deal with. But they have the domains related to where's the person going to live, what are they going to do during the day, safety and security issues related to these issues around, again, surrogate decision making, et cetera. So they're just very, very user friendly. And so when we think about vision, as you think about vision, you also need to think about the vision for yourself, as well as what's the good life going to look like for your family member. And sometimes families tend to just focus on their family member without thinking about yourself. So I'm just going to encourage you to really be thinking about this, again, for you, because I don't know about you, but I'm getting older. And so what's that going to look like for you? And what's it going to look like if one parent needs help due to age or illness, when one parent passes? And then again, what's it going to look like for your family member? And so it may be kind of like a vision for right now, but then also thinking about what it's going to look like in the future. And then we all know money doesn't grow on trees. And so again, the questions of how much money and where's the money going to come from? And again, for you, and then for your family member. So I know and I know you have a really great, if you want to put it in there, might be a great time to do that, Dawn, the housing options resource document that you all have, and for Sean to do that. I know you may send it out to folks, but you all, this is an incredible resource in terms of thinking about various options. But I certainly know of families where they've decided that the family home, they've figured out that's what they want, but then they figured out the legal things they need to have in place for that to be passed to that family member in a way that protects it from being a resource and protects it from having a medicated claim against it once their family member with a disability dies. There are family members who have converted a portion of their house. Family members I know that have bought, when they have the resources, they bought, say, a patio home, or they've rented a separate space for their family member. Other people are living in an agency provided kind of arrangement if they have that particular resource. But just to know that, again, what you may have in mind, and you may have something in mind. I mean, others have moved in with siblings. That may all be doable. And so, and then where's the money going to come from? Where's it going to come from for you? And then where is it going to come from for your family member? And so again, your family member should have some kind of monthly income, maybe from working. It may be from, most likely, they should have something, or will have something from Social Security if they worked or you've worked. And if nobody's worked, then they're probably still going to be eligible for what's called supplemental security income, which right now is $794 a month. So they're going to have some kind of a monthly income, which probably isn't enough to have that good life, but it's part of it. And then just to know that October is actually National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and that employment and maintaining eligibility for cash benefits and health insurance are very, 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 very possible. I just had a great email. I had a great conversation with a mom yesterday who has a 19-year-old son who's going to be making $1,800 a month at Walmart in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. And I was able to show her that he could still maintain his eligibility for Medicaid. You all have these work incentives planning and assistance programs in Ohio, but he can earn that kind of money as long as he doesn't have too much money in the bank and still maintain his eligibility for Medicaid and maintain his eligibility for one of our waivers. Now, what's not to like about that? And she was just pretty excited. So in any event, and I was excited that she was graduated high school, and that's some serious money. But there are some serious opportunities right now because of the labor shortage. So in any event, and he's, I think, still working part-time, may move up to full-time. So anyway, that was an exciting conversation to have. And then just the role of insurance in your planning, that life insurance may play a role. If you have insurance policies, it's just, you need to dust them off, get them out of the filing cabinet, figure out what you have, how much, who's the beneficiary, how's that going to work? It's a really, really, really good way to fund a third-party supplemental needs trust because it's pennies on the dollar. and then long-term care. Everybody wants to think about, but this is a really good website, and I'll send the PowerPoint to Dawn. This is a really good website on just being realistic about what that cost is and where the money can come from, and whether you might want to think about long-term care insurance, because it's expensive, and I don't know of any policy that would cost you $8,000 a month, which is what is the current cost for nursing home care. I know, at least here in Lexington. And just my own personal experience. So this is a picture from a long, long time ago when my grandmother was 100. And my grandmother's in the middle. My mom's is my mom in the green jacket, and my dad and my husband's behind me. And frankly, they're all deceased now. They weren't obviously in this picture, but they all, for various reasons related to health, had long-term care expenses. My grandmother and father, there was money. My husband died of pulmonary fibrosis at age 60, and his long-term care policy that we had really was very helpful. A stair chair, in-home assistance. It was just, and peace of mind. And then my mother, who died at age 80, but it was a long-term care policy that she had that paid for in-home care. And she actually continued working till she was about 79. And then she spent her last year in a really very nice nursing home there in Dublin, Ohio. Obviously she was very very, very limited. So I'm just, again, just my experience has been that the 4 people in my family have had them. I'm glad there was some kind of a resource to pay for it, because it did maintain a positive quality of life until they no longer lived. And actually, my grandmother lived at a nice nursing home in Columbus. So you all have more nursing homes than we do here. And really, they were really quite nice. So in any event, and then ABLE accounts. Again, nobody likes to think about these things, but depending on how long you live, they can just become a reality. So Ohio was the leader in developing ABLE accounts in this country. Ohio had the first program. It's a national program. Kentucky's ABLE program, we're called Stable Kentucky, is part of Ohio's program. And so the ABLE National Resource Center, you can find lots of information about it. You can find information about Ohio's program. ABLE accounts are not estate planning tools, and that you can't leave something to an ABLE account, but it could be a way to save money for the future, but also it could work very nicely with a third-party supplemental needs trust in terms of your family member having access directly to money. And the money, it's like a Roth IRA, except it's or a college savings plan. It grows tax-free. So it's really can be a great benefit for younger families, can save up to $15,000 a year. And I don't know about Ohio, but we have over 10,000 people on waiting lists. And so for really young families, if they were able, with the help of maybe grandparents, aunts and uncles, but to open a stable account when they have a young child and save whatever they can. Actually, I know of families who are able to put the $15,000 a year into that stable account. When their child is 25, they'll have a lot less need for Medicaid. So I would say they've saved 20 years, $15,000. It's grown free. I'm not going to do the math, but they would probably reduce their reliance on needing publicly funded resources that hopefully will increase by then, but who knows? Again, at least for right now, just to know that Medicaid is the largest payer of long-term supports for people with disabilities, including older people. They make up 25% of the federal budget, and that was 2019. There's actually legislation right now that's out of been before Congress, the Build a Better America, that has actually, hopefully might be a huge infusion of federal funds for these home and community-based waivers. We'll see what happens, because every state has large waiting lists, because it is these waivers that provide a range of supports to help people live in the community. And then people, again, they're going to be unpaid people, going to have to identify and ask, don't always have to be blood kin. And then paid people, most likely, if the person could pay for it, your money could pay for it. Susan White, who did the presentation with me last year, her brother David, their parents have been dead for 20 years. David has a Social Security benefit from his own work record and his parents' work record. I think it's a combination. His family had a supplemental needs trust. He doesn't have a waiver. It's just those two, and his parents were not wealthy, but they did have money that could go into the trust. David lives in the family home. Susan and her husband live in the same community, but it works. It's been working. Linda's situation is her money and the government's money. I don't have any money. So, and then I can think of a family that I helped create a plan for well over 20 years ago, where there's family money, her money, and she has one of the waivers, and she's definitely living large. She has a really, really great life. So just know that that talk or that conversation with the adult sibling, and maybe it's a conversation, it's more than one, but it just really, it's just assumptions won't work well for your family. And just to know that siblings do, by and large, outlive their parents by a long time. It's the longest relationship a family member will have. And again, it may be that siblings take on, manageable roles that they can really manage based on their own family situation, where they live. Know that in Ohio, there is a very active Ohio SIBS. There's actually a sibling leadership network, which is national, and then Ohio. And actually, I've got I'm just going to show that. If you do have adult siblings, if anybody here is a sibling, you have Ohio SIBS is a very active chapter, and there's actually going to be a conference in a couple of weeks. Actually, Susan and I are coming up to speak about this very topic at that conference. And so if you have an adult sibling, maybe you can talk them into going. Don't be manipulative, but maybe it would be something they might be willing to attend, at least to get the conversation going. And then the legal safeguards, and again, you have to identify people that take on certain roles, and then you need certain documents. And Sean has put Laura Drake's phone number. Thank you, Sean, in the chat box, as an attorney who evidently is in your area, willing to provide a free consultation and then can execute the legal documents that you need. And so this is an extraordinary book that has been put out by your Ohio Developmental Disabilities. Which one is it? I don't know if I've lost it. Well, we'll just go back to the PowerPoint.
I think it was through DD Council, Carolyn.
Well, I've got their guardianship book. Here it is. It's this one. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So this is called Planning for Bright Tomorrows, Estate and Future Planning for Ohioans with Disabilities and Their Loved Ones. And oh my goodness, is this just incredibly excellent? It's incredibly excellent. And so I'm just going to show you the table of contents, because it really just, it's written by attorneys, but it goes through, and this might be, Cindy, there's no quiz, but you might want to, this might be easier to do and then open up your notebook. I'm just going to suggest that, or this might be what you need to read, and then you're going to open up your notebook and figure out, well, so what part am I going to take on? Or you might open up the notebook and then you find something that has to do with these issues, and oops, and you can go back here and find some of the answers. So again, I think having multiple ways to help, touch points to help us learn about and figure out what we need to do. So this is just would be a really great resource. And I guess I can copy and paste that. I think you just did that, Sean, but I'm going to do it here. And then also they have this really great book on guardianship in Ohio, which I think the same attorneys wrote. This I can't flip through, but I'm gonna, you can just look at the table. So what is guardianship, and are there alternatives? How do I know if it should be established? Are there alternatives, decision-making, potential drawbacks with a durable financial power of attorney? I will tell you, if you're the guardian, you still have to fill out something separate to be someone's representative payee with Social Security. Social Security and your guardianship courts in Ohio, guardianship courts and Social Security don't talk to each other, okay? It's its own form. So I'm going to assume that this could just be really helpful. And I think with Don, when you and I had our conversation, I'm about ready to be done, but I just can't stress this enough. People with intellectual and developmental disabilities, by and large, and actually all of us, I shouldn't just say that, all of us, if we're over the age of 18, there has to be someone who can act on our behalf legally if we can't act for ourselves. And so that's why, at least here in Kentucky, because older people don't have powers of attorney, then they lose cognitive capability because of dementia, Alzheimer's, and then somebody has to file a petition for guardianship. And a lot of those older adults then end up with a state guardian. I mean, so you don't want that to be you. You don't want that to be me. And so I know that makes us all really uncomfortable, but I couldn't have, again, I couldn't have done what I did for Linda if I didn't have legal authority in her life. It's not, you can't just love somebody. I love her, but I had to have legal authority to act on her behalf. And my adult daughters know it's the second floor in the cabinet downstairs. That's where we all have powers of attorney because something happened to me, and we all have advanced directives about what we want. So I know it's a really uncomfortable conversation, but it's just something that it's important that there be someone. So I think, Don, I'm going to go ahead and cease and desist to see what questions we have. I will just move a couple slides I didn't get to today. Just one thing I want to point out to you about supplemental trusts. Just to know that you're working with Laura or another as a estate planning attorney in Ohio or with a pool trust to create what's called a third party. You're the third party, the trust is the second party, your family member is the first party. Whatever money is in there, when your family member with a disability dies, Medicaid does not have a claim. If you don't do that, and you just leave money, if you don't, I'm sure Ohio has a will for you if you don't have one. Kentucky does. And it would mean most likely that your adult child with a disability will inherit something. Well, then you can create a first party trust. You may be able to open an ABLE account, but just know Medicaid then has a claim against whatever's left. So it's just really much more beneficial to be proactive, because then you establish what happens to the money when the person with a disability dies. Because a lot of times folks have questions about that. Okay, so I'm even going to stop sharing. It's 6:31. And I think we were going to have another small breakout and just have folks talk about, just based on what I've shared. So sort of facing forward, what might help you move in a positive direction?
I'll just repeat the question because I think it can help, so moving forward, what could help you move in a positive direction? So we've really been listening to Carolyn highlight some things that we need to be thinking about or could be thinking about. And so just see what does that say to you? What are you thinking when you think about your loved one or somebody that you're supporting? What would help you move in a positive direction? What would be a couple steps that you could take?
Okay, so I'm going to open the rooms and we'll trust that you all will just talk to each other. This is a judgment-free zone, okay? Guilt-free, judgment-free zone. Okay, here you go. So please join.
This is, when we leave the rooms, it's almost like a Star Trek thing. That's what it feels like.
As Harry Potter. Harry Potter. You're just
Harry Potter.
You're whipped out. Well, how about if anyone would like to share? Again, we're small enough group. Either unmute your mic. Any big ideas, small ideas, encouraging ideas that came from your conversations, or type it in the chat box. Just would be great to have a little debrief.
Well, I'd like to say I learned a lot from my group. The people that were in my group, they helped me out with a lot of ideas and suggestions on what to do with my family that I'm working with. As far as, they were able to explain to me a little bit more about the letter of intent. And they told me that's important to have things like Post-it or a binder with information if something were to happen, about their favorite foods or restaurants or, emergency numbers, things like that should be in place. We talked about guardianship and how my family, she doesn't want to give up guardian right now. And that's what was making her afraid to move forward and make any decisions. So that was helpful for me. So I'm thankful.
Thank you, Margot, for sharing. Somebody else.
I'd like to say that I've learned a lot. I missed part of the visual because I lost visual but could hear it. But I know I'm a sibling that things sort of got left to me when my parents passed. And for those of you who are parents and you have siblings that will take over for you, if you have a notebook prepared for your sibling that has the names of people, what they do, any contracts that you did with housing networks or special things that you set up, would be greatly appreciated by the sibling that takes over, rather than trying to find proof of what was done, which you're not going to find after your parents pass. Just names of doctors, any agreements you made with any agency, who to talk to within the agencies. It would be really, really helpful to your siblings, to your kids.
See, Janine, what you're doing is important.
Well, that's exactly, you know, what I want to have taken care of, is I don't want that to happen to them, where they're like, don't know what direction to go, because they would handle it. It would be hard, and like you handled it probably, but the chaos in Tommy's life is overwhelming to him. So
The only thing that was saving grace for my twin brothers was because I came down to help my parents out. I was with them for 5 years before I really had to take over everything.
mhm.
And that helped a lot. But there's issues that came up, and I know my mom, who was the dominant person in their lives, really set up a lot of things for them, but I had no proof of it. So when issues came up, I couldn't prove anything. And I was at the mercy of agencies that said this didn't happen, and I know it did. But mom was great, I have to say, about setting up and putting all of the ducks in a row for my younger brothers. So that was not an issue for me. My issue was following through, knowing who to talk to, and actually then now is setting up a trust, which hasn't been done yet. So to protect them at this point, if something happens to me. And who do you leave the next care to when you're not here? I'd say that's one of the biggest issues, because they're the youngest in our family. So we're all going to be gone. So who do you trust from there then?
Dave and Cindy, did you have something you've been
Well,
nodding?
we just agree with that, because that's
Yeah.
kind of our problem. So we don't have a big family, and we're transplants in another state. So we have no one really knows. Madeline is our daughter with disability. And so Sean, and we took the Future Is Now class, and it really helped us think of our networks, and outside of people that have that have kids with disabilities like us, to try and step out of that. But then, there's that trust issue. And we have an older daughter, but, we heard about the SIB shops. I've asked her, she's just not she's still trying to figure out her life. So as a sibling, I appreciate that, Monica, because I'm trying to get everything in order so that somebody could, it's kind of at the stage of piecing it. They would have to piece it together a little bit. We have trusts and things like that, but she would have to, our older daughter would run through the house trying to figure out where that is, even, where are those documents, and where's the key to the safety deposit box, and so
Yeah, she's in Columbus, we're in Cleveland, so
Yeah.
we're not that close.
so
Yeah.
and then siblings are in who really don't know what's going on. Well, we don't
Oh,
think
like
they
cousins
do.
and all that.
Cousins,
Yeah,
Chicago, Pennsylvania,
yeah,
Tennessee.
yeah.
There's no one near us, so
Yeah, see, my mom had set up a trust for them, but when she passed away, there really wasn't money for the trust, because I used almost all their money for their home care,
Yeah.
was
was part of it.
Mm.
And they did not have the long-term insurance, which
Okay.
is really important to get, because the care for my parents at home with 24/7 care was about $10,000 a month.
Right.
Oh,
Yes.
Monica, I'm glad you said that. You just queued up Carolyn, because I know we had a question about that, Carolyn, sort of what your advice about that was, and also long-term care insurance for the child with a developmental disability too.
Well, the child for the developmental disability, their long-term care insurance, frankly, is Medicaid. I mean, really, they're not going to qualify for a policy because they already are disabled. So, but for you, I mean, again, you could explore whether, again, you can go online, you can find a reputable agent, but whether you can, again, to me, I've always thought with insurance, something's better than nothing. So maybe you can't afford the Cadillac, but maybe you can afford something that, again, can help with some of the costs. So I just encourage you to look into it. And there actually now are what are called partnership policies, that where if you buy a policy, let's say you have $100,000 worth of money in your pool, then if you spend that on your own care, then you've protected $100,000 of whatever assets you have if you need Medicaid. Does that make sense? So you just need to find a reputable person. I can tell you the good companies to, Northwestern, Mass Mutual, New York Life, mutual companies, but also Transamerica sells it. Prudential sells one, I'm pretty sure. MetLife probably has a policy. So just see, I think you need an agent. I don't think that's, you can find lots of life insurance online. I don't know if you can do long-term care.
I've got a question about, I have like $100,000 term life insurance policy that is going to last until I'm 80. And it's going to cost me, it's not a whole lot. I've had it since I was in my 30s. So I have a good rate. It's going to go up though when I turn 70. The question is should I not do that and do the long-term care instead?
Well, how about it's just going to go back to, I mean,
yeah,
it's going to kind of go back to your vision for what you want for your family member.
Right. Well, I want to protect my assets for my daughter long-term.
Really long-term, I'm just going to suggest, just like you need an attorney, you need a financial person. Now, I work with somebody from Thrivent Financials.
Oh, I know Thrivent. Yes, I know Thrivent.
And I don't, this is not a multi-level marketing plan, okay? But I just think they're a really good company. I have had, and I don't have a lot of money, and she doesn't make me feel bad about myself.
Right.
Just really, but I think you need someone to really sit down and look at, again, everything you have. What do you want to accomplish? What are the best tools that can help you get there that you can afford? So that's my suggestion. Just understand that term insurance is like renting insurance, and at some point, it becomes cost prohibitive.
Well, I bought it originally just to protect if something happened to me, that my husband wouldn't have to lose the house, because I was right. It's really good. And now it's good for if you die, not when you die. So exactly. And there are actually now these hybrid life insurance, long-term care products. So anyway, just find somebody good to work with. Just find someone. Okay. All right. Thank you. And again, they will usually do a free consultation. I'm sure. I know a couple people I can call and just have the conversation. And so we only have 3 minutes, Sean, so we didn't have a chance to hear your other story. I'm sorry, but this.
Okay. I don't want to hold everybody up because I know we're short, so I want to respect. Dawn, I'll let you make the executive decision on this one because I don't want to keep people.
Oh, no, I think it's fine. I think I'm much happier that we had some helpful questions, and it's nice to have a smaller, more intimate group too. So I just wanted to remind people, we will be sending all these materials. So you'll get an email with the PowerPoint and other things we've referenced here. I'll remind you that you can always sign up for Futures Now if that's the point you're at, Futures Now session. If you, I've offered to some families too, if you want some support in having a planning session with siblings, we could do that. So just let Sean or I know. And, we always have, if you check out our website, and I'll send you the links, we have a lot of resources around Trust Stable, just things that you can dive into based on what you just named tonight. So if there are things that, next steps you want to take over the next couple of weeks to learn more, I'll give you a bunch of things that you can select from. I know sometimes parents will say that it's so overwhelming. There's just so much information. So just think about what you wanted to look at tonight and just look at that. and that will be success along the journey. So, and please stay in touch with us. We love hearing from you, and Sean, you're ahead of me. As always with that. So our contact information is in there. I wanted to say a special thank you to Carolyn for spending time with us again and sharing her expertise, and for Janine for sharing her story and being part of the conversation. So thank you all. And it's great to see you all. And we'll look forward to seeing you in other places.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.